Have you ever heard a message so powerful that it wasn't written down, it was lived? That's exactly what we're diving into today. We're looking at one of the most intense and honestly strangest prophecies ever, one that was embodied by the prophet Isaiah's own kids.
I mean, really think about that. We live in a world that is just full of noise, right? So how do you make a message stick? How do you say something so important that people have absolutely no choice but to pay attention? Well, the ancient prophet Isaiah was facing this exact problem. And his solution? It was radical. It was, frankly, kind of unthinkable. He didn't just speak God's message. He lived it by turning his own children into breathing, walking prophecies. To really get why he did this, we have to go back in time. So picture it, the kingdom of Judah, around 735 BCE. This is not a peaceful time. It's a nation on a knife's edge, just holding its breath, waiting for total collapse. So the situation was, well, it was bad. I mean, really bad. Judah was basically caught in this pincer movement, getting attacked by its neighbors, Syria and Israel. And the king? King Ahaz? He was completely terrified. He had this stark choice in front of him. Either trust God for some kind of miracle, or make a deal with the devil, basically, by allying with the ruthless Assyrian Empire. We're talking about the total collapse of the kingdom. This wasn't just some vague fear. It was a very, very real possibility. And in this moment of just intense political pressure and fear, God's response was completely unexpected. It wasn't some booming voice from the clouds. It wasn't a grand sermon. It was a person, a child to be exact. And this living, breathing message started with a son of hope. He was, quite literally, a walking promise to a nation that was absolutely gripped by fear.
So Isaiah's first son was named Shear-Jashub, and in Hebrew, this name is a complete prophecy all on its own. It means a remnant shall return.
Let's break that down for a second. Shear means a remnant, the few who are left after a disaster. And Yashub means to return. But it's actually deeper than that. It doesn't just mean physically coming back. It also means to repent, to turn back to God spiritually. So this one name held this incredible two-part promise, not only physical survival, but also spiritual renewal.
Now imagine this scene. Isaiah doesn't just whisper this message in the king's ear. No, he takes his little boy, Shear-Jashub, and stands him right there in front of the terrified King Ahaz. The child's very existence, his very name, was the sermon. Trust God, not these big, scary empires. A remnant will survive this.
But that was only half the message. The other half was much, much darker. And that brings us to the Son of Judgment, a living, breathing, dire warning. Isaiah's second son got an even more dramatic name, Maher-Shalal-Hash-Baz. I mean, just listen to it. It sounds urgent, rhythmic, almost like a battle cry. And its meaning is just as intense. Swift to the plunder, quick to the spoil. It's a promise of sudden, unavoidable destruction. And get this wasn't some secret message whispered in the dark. No way. God told Isaiah to make this a huge public spectacle, something no one could deny. So, first step, he writes this terrifying name down on a big tablet with official witnesses and everything. Step 2, the son is conceived and born, and right then a clock starts ticking. The prophecy was that judgment would fall before this little boy could even learn to say dada or mama. Can you imagine?
And a prophecy came true with just chilling accuracy. So, around 734 BCE, the child is born. Just 2 years later, bam, Assyria sacks Damascus. Then, about a decade after that, Samaria, Israel's capital, falls. The fate that was promised in that little boy's name happened, swiftly and completely.
Okay, so now you've got these two brothers, these two living messages walking around the streets of Jerusalem. One is named A Remnant Will Return, and the other is Swift to the Plunder. One is all hope, the other is total doom. So how can both be true at the same time?
Yeah, this really brings us to the heart of the matter. What was God actually trying to say to Judah here? Was it a message of hope and deliverance, or was it a message of judgment and total destruction? Which one is it?
When you put them side by side, it's pretty stark. On one hand, you have Shear-Jashub, a name that's all about God's mercy, a promise that a faithful few will survive. But on the other hand, you've got Maher-Shalal-Hash-Baz, a name that screams of swift judgment for rebelling and trusting in the wrong things. But here's the brilliant part. They weren't two different prophecies. They were one choice with two totally different outcomes. The path of Shear-Jashub was to trust in God, and a remnant would be saved. The path of Maher-Shalal-Hash-Baz was to trust in foreign empires, and that would only lead to swift, certain plunder.
So you see, they weren't contradictory messages at all. They were really two sides of the same coin. They showed something incredibly deep about God's authority, this ability to hold both incredible mercy and absolute justice in perfect balance at the same time.
Okay, this is a fascinating story from thousands of years ago, for sure. But so what? Why does any of this matter to us today? What can we possibly take away from these living signs and portents?
Well, Isaiah tells us himself, loud and clear. He writes, "I and the children the Lord has given me are signs and portents in Israel." His whole family, they had become a walking sermon, a living, breathing message designed to wake up an entire nation.
So what are the big takeaways here? First, maybe the most powerful messages aren't just spoken, they're lived out. Second, hope and judgment aren't always opposites. They can and do exist side by side. And finally, and this is a big one, our choices, especially the ones we make between faith and fear, they have real, tangible consequences.
Isaiah's story really leaves us with this powerful truth, right? That a human life can literally be a message. And that means the big question at the end of all this isn't just for some ancient king. It's for us. It's for you. In this crazy, uncertain world we're living in, what is your life a sign of?